Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Campfire Series podcast. This is our very first curtain call episode where we have a very special guest joining us directly from the Broadway company of Mrs. Doubtfire and Something Rotten and Hello Dolly and Motown and so many others, but we get to hear from him. We had a little conversation with him via Zoom. This is Mr. Aaron Kaburick, and he joined me. Let's welcome him to the show.
Aaron Kaburick, and I'm currently, and I use that in quotation marks, currently in Mrs. Doubtfire, at the Stephen Sondheim Theater on Broadway.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. Thank you so much once again for joining us. What basically I'm trying to do is a lot of, showcases have been canceled. A lot of high school theater awards shows have been canceled, and I'm just trying, and usually they have working professionals give students and young actors advice. So that's what I'm trying to provide, and I just appreciate you coming on again. Tell us a little bit about Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone knows the movie. It's based on the movie. It's had a pretty quick journey. I mean, I just noticed your sweatshirt. Yay, something
Yay,
rotten.
something rotten. Woo!
Yay. I mean, I say it's quick. The writers worked on it for, definitely a few years. But we had our very first workshop, oh my gosh, probably a year ago this week. I'm looking at a calendar, but as if I have it written on the calendar, but I don't. But it was last May. We had our very first workshop of it, a 2-week workshop in New York. And I would say about a month after that, we found out we were going to Seattle to play the Seattle Fifth Avenue Theater over the holidays.
Right on.
We did that. And then we had about a month off before we started Broadway rehearsals. And then we got 3 previews in before the big shutdown happened.
What is that like? You've done a couple shows where you've had to do workshops and then previews, and you've seen the show kind of change before opening night. What is that like?
Oh, I love it. I mean, because you just get to see the entire creation and how the creators and the director and the choreographer shape the piece. And sometimes you have to say goodbye to the best things ever. Something Rotten had this beautiful ballad called Lovely Love that I think you can find it on YouTube.
Is that the one where Portia and Nigel and B and Nick sing it in the same scene?
B and Nick, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was
That's
an
a cute
act
one.
2. And we all, what's that?
That's a cute one. That's a really good song.
I know, and we all loved it so much. And we were, I would, well, yeah, it made it to some previews, and we got gathered for a note session. And Casey Nicola, our director, was like, "We all love it, but it was right before Omelet, basically," and he was like, "The audience just wants to get to that big moment," and
Right.
and so that was keeping them in the way, basically.
No, yeah, for sure.
So we lost Lovely Love. We cut a song in Seattle from Mrs. Doubtfire. It was called Phone Calls. And it was really funny. All we sang were the words dumb. So it was Mrs. Doubtfire, or it was Daniel pretending to be all these different nannies on the phone and interviewing for the job. And the ensemble, we just sang dummy, 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 dumb. And then we would sing at the end of each phrase. We'd be like, "This is really dumb, dumb," and we would like do this like ballet dance and then jeté into the wings.
Oh my gosh.
And it got cut after like a few shows. The phone calls proper are still there. Rob still makes the phone calls as Daniel, but our dummy dumbs got cut. So you get to see all of that happen, and you get to see what works and what doesn't work. And for me, being a part of Something Rotten from the very beginning, I did our very first just like 1-week reading where we're literally just in the studio with the scripts. The first.
I lost your sound. Uh-oh. I lost your sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, great. I'm getting rid of it. I'm throwing away my
technology
Bluetooth.
is not fun.
Yeah. So
when we were, so I was a part of the very first reading of Something Rotten, and we were basically just in a studio for 1 week, first time hearing the material. And I would say day one, we all knew, we were like, this is special. This is going to be really good. And that was Monday. On Friday, we did the presentation, and we did 2 presentations, and it was like raucous. I mean, it
Right.
was off the charts great. And then that was in January of like 2014, I think. And then in the fall, we did a 4-week workshop. I was doing Motown on Broadway at night. And so I would rehearse
Oh wow.
the Something Rotten all day long from 10 to 6. I would like grab dinner. And if it was a 7 o'clock show, I would literally just grab a sandwich and run and do my 7 o'clock show. If it was an 8 o'clock show, I would like find a place in the theater to take a quick nap and then do the 8 o'clock show. And it was crazy intense for that month. And that during that workshop, I was in the ensemble. I didn't play Robin. Robin was sort of it was a guy named Brendan Stimpson who did ultimately come into the show, but a very different type than me. And he was like young and like boyish. And at the end of the workshop, they knew we were moving to Broadway, and they knew that Brendan couldn't continue on with the show because he was already contracted to do another show.
Okay.
And so Casey Nicholaw came to me and he was like, how would you feel about playing Robin? And I was like, yes, please. So it was that was awesome to like, then take over that, little feature.
Right.
And then during the Broadway portion, they would basically just throw lines at us. Like there used to be, so Omelet used to have like parts to it, and there were scenes in between where it was working, parts weren't working, and and it was almost like noises off. Like you would see and then you'd see what was happening backstage. Like I remember I even had one line where I was like, my dress doesn't fit me. Do I have time to sew it? And they'd be like, no. And I'd be like, I'll make it work, and run off stage. And I was really sad when that one got cut because it was kind of a fun like Tim Gunn Project Runway like shout out. But it just needed to move quicker at that point.
Right.
So that's what's great is you get to not only do you get to see the changes, but things get to be tailor made for you, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you kind of get to create this stuff. Like a lot of the stuff that is continued on in the shows were stuff that we came up with in the moment.
Absolutely. Now, wait, yeah, you've been in the Kirkpatrick brothers did the script and score for Mrs. Doubtfire too, right?
Yeah, they did. So it's Wayne and Carrie Kirkpatrick, and then a guy named John O'Farrell, who's a British guy, primarily like a novelist. Yeah, a novelist, and he's hilarious.
How have they compared the two shows? Like, are they like similar? Having the same like process with you've been through it all, with the creative team, the same creative team.
Yeah, I would say, well, it's a different director and choreographer. So Casey Nicholaw did Something Rotten, and Mrs. Doubtfire is Jerry Zaks and Lauren Latero is doing the choreography. But I would say, like, the difference is Something Rotten was entirely original. Like, it was an original idea. Everything about it was so completely original. So they were figuring it out as we went along. So we didn't even know how the show was going to end when we first started. In fact, I think when we started previews, there was still, I really kind of liked this idea. And I think if we'd had more time, it was just about getting the set built. But there was a time where the end of the show was, we were in America, and there were literally I think Shylock was at a ticket booth, like taking tickets, and people were coming to watch the show that Nick and Nigel were doing, and the troupe was behind, which is sort of still in the show at the end. But originally it was conceived to be, there was actually, I think even one of the pictures I sent you, I realized after I sent, it's got a cut piece of scenery behind us, which was like a big diorama as we were doing the final final, like, what's that oh, I forget what the final one is. Oh my God, it's been too long. But it was like a diorama that was changing. And like, I remember Nick and Nigel would come in a boat with B, and they were like pretending to be like Christopher Columbus. They're like, look, it's a new world. And I really liked it. It was, and I actually think it would have worked if we'd had time to figure it out, but previews are quick, fast, brutal, and cutthroat.
No, yeah, absolutely. And now you've been in like 2 shows now with Rob McClure. How has that been?
Rob McClure's a hack, a complete kidding. I've never loved anybody more or working with anybody more. He is. I remember when Brian Darcy James. I knew of Rob. I didn't know him personally, and so when Brian was leaving Something Rotten and we heard Rob was coming in, I remember we all thought, oh, we've heard great things about Rob and he's so talented, but how do you replace Brian Darcy James? He was so terrific and just a great, an incredible human being. And I remember the very first rehearsal we had with Rob, I came in as Robin and started doing like the little moment with him. And he reacted in a way that like made me laugh. Like I shouldn't have been breaking. I've been doing the show for over a year and I was like breaking in the middle of his rehearsal. I should have been like, a good actor for him. But he was so funny and delightful. And I just remember we all walked away from that rehearsal and we all like relaxed. And more than just relaxed, we all got excited because we're like, oh, this is great. He's terrific. He's new. And he was just, pure fun the whole time. Rob in Mrs. Doubtfire he's unbelievable. What he is doing in the show is like, it's like 20 Olympic events combined. I don't know how he's doing it. He, in rehearsals, like he would be like, whereas like I would maybe be in a number and I would be like, can we simplify this? Rob would be like, I think we should make this harder. Like he's the complete opposite. He's like, what if I try juggling while doing that? Like he's that kind of person and it works. And he's so smart and his relationship with Jerry Zaks, our director, is so wonderful and beautiful. And I just love him so much. He's one of the best people ever. And if I could do every show with him, I would be so happy.
That's awesome.
I didn't finish an earlier thought, by the way, when you asked about the difference with the Kirkpatricks and Something Rotten and Doubtfire. What I never finished the complete thought on, by the way, was that Doubtfire was already established as a show. So we knew the story arc. We knew the beginning, middle, and end. So they've just had to adapt it, not to make light of what they've done, because I think when people come see it, they're going to feel like they saw the Mrs. Doubtfire they know, but it's really almost like a completely new show. It's updated, it's set currently, it's theatricalized, so it'll feel like the movie, but it is definitely a theatrical show. So that's sort of the difference. Doubtfire's moved quicker than what Something Rotten did, but both of them have the same kind of zany humor and quirkiness to it that I love, and I'm thrilled I get to be a part of. So
my favorite number is the Easy Peasy number. That just looks like so fun.
It will be fun. Right now it's still hard, and it will be really hard when we go back, whenever that is, and we don't have the stamina anymore. But when we were in Seattle, we added like a big long tap break to it. So we were all doing okay with the number, and then
which looks amazing.
Yeah. Then they were like, let's add this tap break in. And so we learned the tap break in a day in Seattle. I don't think it went in that night. I think it went in the next night because they had to figure out the orchestrations, which is often the case. I'll finish this thought and then I'll come back and tell you a story about Something Rotten, which is good about that too. So, but yeah, and the first night we did it with that full tap break, I just remember the number ended and we were all like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to continue on with the show. So our stamina's gotten better about it. But on a side tangent, since you guys are doing Something Rotten, you did it already, or you were supposed to be doing it?
We were a week from opening. We still are on hold. The plan for us is if we're in California, so if we start going back in phases the 15th, we're planning to do it at the end of June, but not for an audience. We're gonna tape it and
Oh,
stream it. Yeah. So at least we get to do it. But
yeah,
anyway,
yeah. And you're the first high school doing it, right?
we're one of the first. I know there's other companies, but we fought for, I want to say, 5 months for the rights because they wouldn't give it to us. And Carrie and Wayne, they've given us a bunch. They gave us a lot of choices, like, because we go to a Christian school, so we sometimes we can't say everything. So they are very polite, giving us a lot of alternatives.
Oh, that's great.
But they've been super cool about it. And musical MTI, they've been super cool about it. But hopefully it happens. But anyway, finish your thought. This is about you. This is about you.
It was about orchestrations. Yeah, yes. It was about orchestrations and how sometimes that delays things going in. So Something Rotten, we were doing Omelet. We had gotten to a version of Omelet that did not have all the backstage stuff like Noises Off. So the Omelet running smoothly, but it still was not getting the response that Casey felt like it needed at that point in the show. Like it needed to just keep topping itself and build and be this huge number. And it just, for whatever reason, wasn't getting there. So I would say like week number 3 of previews out of 4 weeks. So we're now like maybe probably like 8 performances away from critics coming to review the show. Casey decides he wants to put in a whole new Omelet, an entirely rethought number. But, that number's long. So we were still doing version A at night while learning version B. So we started on, I believe, Monday, learning version B. We learned version B, I want to say like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. By Wednesday, we had version B perfected, but it couldn't go into the show that night because the orchestrations weren't ready yet because we were still figuring out what the number was going to be. And version B, I don't remember a whole lot about it. All I remember is that Christian Borle and I did like full-on swing dancing as the king and queen. Like literally like jitterbug, like Lindy Hop swing dancing. And I also remember us sitting up on the big banquet table, like having some sort of like choreography, kicking our legs up there. And it was really fun. But on Thursday night, we put it into the show and it tanked. It was like,
ooh,
boo. The audience just like did not, they were like, it was like half that before. So Casey gathered us the next day and he was like, okay, that didn't work, but I have a new idea. And he's like, I want to try it right here in rehearsals. And if it works, it still can't go into the show until next Monday because it's now Friday and they need time to orchestrate it. And once the weekend hits, you lose rehearsal time because of matinees.
Right.
So his idea was, what if we have Marisha, who was in the ensemble, sing And I'm Telling You as the egg, I'm Not Going, the Dreamgirls moment.
Yeah.
And he was like, it could be a terrible idea, who knows? And we all loved it in rehearsal. They orchestrated it over the weekend. We put it in on Monday night and it like made the number. Like none of us realized that you needed that little moment to then make the rest of the number take off and fly. But he's smart enough he knows that sort of stuff, or at least knows to look for that sort of stuff. And so we finished that number probably 2 performances before like the New York Times came to review us. Like it was like that close to the end that we were finishing it. But sometimes it's not about, the actors learning it as it is about making sure the orchestrations are ready or sets built or whatever.
No, for sure. I got 2 more like specific questions before I'll let you go. But everyone wants to be on Broadway. Everybody wants to be on a national tour, but people don't realize how hard 8 shows a week is. How do you cope with that? Like, you obviously like take care of yourself. And you said when you're doing Motown, you were doing shows at night while in rehearsals for Something Rotten during the day. Like how does a Broadway actor like balance that out?
Yeah. I mean, that was hard. And that's happened a few times where, you might do a reading or a workshop during the day because as an actor, you're always hustling because no show lasts forever. So you always need to plant seeds for your next show, and maybe in some of the seeds you plant might not even be a show that takes off, but maybe it's a new director you want to work with, or so you're always like trying to plant those seeds. So those periods are really hard, because you're just constantly on the go, and you just have to like get as much sleep and eat as healthy as you can. I hope you guys too get to do your show. I hope it, I mean, just selfishly, I hope you get to do it so I can watch it and like stream it, you know. So
well, I will definitely keep you updated. Thank you for the love and support and sending lots of love. Thank you again for coming on the show. I'll let you know when it airs. It should be airing this Thursday on my YouTube, and
great.
a lot of people are excited to hear what you have to say. So,
oh, that's very kind. Well, let me know if you have any more questions, and best of luck to you, Logan.
absolutely. Nice meeting you, Aaron.
Likewise. See ya.
Take care.